Good evening. I am Paula Fontana, Vice President of Strategic Programming Initiatives with the National Black MBA Association, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to Behind the Boardroom. So it has been an incredible evening thus far. We've had exposure to the best that National Black MBA has to offer, from networking with our illustrious board members to engaging with our amazing chapter presidents. And now, to cap off the evening, we have two dynamic leaders who are representative of our corporate partners. So, as many of you know, the mission of the National Black MBA Association is to lead in the creation of educational, wealth building, and growth opportunities for Blacks throughout all stages of their careers. We do that in conjunction with our 40 chapters across the nation and for our more than 20,000 members and growing. So this evening's event is the brainchild of Daryl Joyce. He is the president of our Memphis chapter, and his leadership team has been such a joy to work with them. I won't steal any of his thunder to introduce more of this session, but again, it is my pleasure and delight to bring to the virtual stage the ultimate joyful collaborator that is Black excellence, known as Daryl Joyce. Daryl.
Thank you, Paula. I appreciate everybody for attending and all of our special guests and visitors alike. I won't be long. I'm going to pass this on to Robin so she can introduce our first special guest speaker, and then I will introduce the second so we can hear what these fantastic ladies have to say. Robin Tucker, our Vice President of Operations, welcome.
Thank you, Daryl. I am so delighted this evening. Welcome everybody for attending. You are in for a treat. I'd like to introduce one of our panelists, Rita J. Cowan, Vice President of Internal Audit for FedEx Services. As Vice President of Internal Audit at FedEx Services, Rita brings a disciplined and success-oriented approach to the audit process. She's responsible for planning, organizing, and directing the audit activities for the FedEx U.S. domestic operations for express, freight, ground logistics, and audit special projects fraud investigations. Her commitment to excellence has earned her the FedEx 5-Star Award, which is the company's highest honor, and Internal Audit All-Star Team Awards. In addition to earning a BBA degree from the University of Memphis, Rita's credentials include the Certified Information Systems Auditor, CISA, and the Certified Internal Auditor, CIA. She holds memberships in the Institute of Internal Auditors, the Information Systems Audit and Control Association, the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, and the International Aviation Women's Association. She also serves on the board of the IIA Memphis chapter and is current chairperson for Benedict College School of Business Advisory Board. Rita is also a graduate of Leadership Memphis executive class. She supports diversity and inclusion at FedEx by ensuring that the internal audit department reflects the FedEx People First philosophy. In addition, she serves on the FedEx Services Executive Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee. Rita is involved in the community in several ways, including Toys for Tots, United Way, Operation Feed, the March of Dimes, and the FedEx Family House. She also participates with recruitment and development activities at Jackson State University, Mississippi State, and Delta State. As a professional mentor, Rita has been featured in the Century 21 accounting textbook for high school students, and she is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Thank you, Rita. Daryl, back to you.
Thank you, Robin. Welcome, Rita. I'm excited to also introduce our next speaker. Miss Alexis Kerr is Vice President of Mahogany Brand at Hallmark Cards, Inc. Last month, she actually joined and took this new position as the Vice President for the brand. She will be leading the charge to expand and elevate how the customers see and experience the brand, in addition to expanding it to new places in the marketplace. Before Hallmark, Alexis Kerr was the Cadillac head of multicultural marketing, leading the organization's efforts to increase opinion, consideration, and market share amongst diverse customers. She also managed corporate responsibility, social efforts, music efforts, which also were directly aligned to the brand's global marketing strategy. Internationally, she has created and led the customer experience team at General Motors Middle East operations, managing Dubai's expansion of culture throughout the entire organization, impacting 8 Middle Eastern countries, including Saudi Arabia. Most recently, she was responsible for managing and leading the creative agency execution of the 2021 Cadillac Escalade reveal short film with Academy Award-winning filmmaker Spike Lee. This was the largest reveal in Cadillac's history, and she is also strategically leading the internal and external efforts around their diversity, equity, inclusion for the brand. Ms. Kerr is a New York native and holds an undergrad degree in both engineering and computer science. She also holds an MBA in marketing. In her personal time, she enjoys jewelry making, blogging, and traveling internationally. Alexis is also very active and passionate about wellness, community, and health. She is also my personal mentor and advisor. I had an opportunity to meet her when I was with the Black MBA chapter in Detroit. She was on a panel for GM, and we got a chance to talk, connect, and she's been working with me for several years. And so it's such an honor to have someone not only pour into my life, but also see how well she's grown and reached out to other young people. So without further ado, thank you, Alexis. Thank you, Rita. And we're looking forward to hearing for what both of you have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Robin. We appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Daryl. Thank you, Robin and Rita. I am so looking forward to this conversation. First of all, congratulations on your long and consistent history of working in and around the Black community, as well as HBCUs. I think there is a lot to say for women who elevate to the level that you're at, but also spend the time to make sure they look back and grab someone. And I think that has been something that we both spent the time to do. And it's so important, especially at a time like this in our society. So just a salute to you humbly for all that you have achieved. And in the midst of this Women's History Month, it's just so wonderful to be part of this panel and to have this conversation this evening.
I am looking forward to it, Alexis. I'm so privileged to have you on this panel with me and the opportunity to just sit here and talk with you and to just share our knowledge, as well as just to embrace this Women's History Month and the opportunity that we have here to share our knowledge and to be up in the forefront, to give our insight. I think it's going to be something that's going to be really well received here. And we're hoping that what we bring to the table today, someone can utilize that for their future development and growth. So I'm excited about having an opportunity just to talk with you.
Yeah, and I think the big piece about tonight is just making sure that we're upfront and honest, and we kind of give that look behind the curtain to really say, what are some of the pivotal things that we have done, that we have owned really to get to the places that we're at? And then I think the other piece is that we're not yet where we shall be. We're in the midst of a journey. And so a lot of the things that we'll talk about tonight, quite frankly, Rita, these are the same things that we tell ourselves. These are the affirmations that we tell ourselves every morning when we get up, as we pray before we go into meetings, as we're humbling ourselves to learn new skills and work with different groups. And so, let's get started with some questions.
Let's go for it.
All right. And the good thing is that everyone can feel free to drop questions in the chat. We'll try to grab some of those as we get to, but want to just make sure we look at some questions that we received up front and kind of make sure we collaborate and provide as much insight as possible. I'm just new to my VP role. It's just been a month. On the 8th was exactly a month. And so it's just given me so much pleasure and delight. And so to be amongst a great like yourself, Rita, is just super exciting for me to be able to share as a younger person in my career, still trying to get to the level that you're at. It's just really exciting to be able to have a conversation and talk candidly about some of the things that we have gone through to get to this place, but then some of the things that we know will need to happen at a time like this. If we think about whether it be Oprah's interview this past Sunday, or just all that has happened as we open, 2021, I think, it's important that we just take a pause and just, ask, how are you doing? How are you doing, Rita?
And I will say for me, it has been an adjustment from the standpoint of trying to manage through not only COVID from a personal standpoint, but also from a professional standpoint. As you guys may know, from a FedEx perspective, we are definitely part of the relief when it comes to COVID, getting these vaccines moved. But I think if you think about it from a personal leadership perspective, one of my challenges and one of the things that I'm always trying to do is to see not only how I'm doing, but how my team is doing. And so just checking in and having those moments of conversation. And I think during this period of time, and this is part of what Oprah Winfrey talked about when she was talking to Meghan and Harry about mental health. And in this time, it is so important as leaders that we check in with our individuals that surround us each day, whether it's in a professional standpoint, or even from a personal standpoint. And more importantly, we have to check ourselves because we're giving so much every day. And we're asked to be there for others, but we have to be there for ourselves as well. And I think as African Americans, particularly as minority individuals, mental health is something that we shy away from, but we shouldn't. And we should be more open and transparent in that area. And what I found throughout my career, regardless of what level I was on, I had to realize that I needed to reach out and ask for help and support where was necessary. I started in management. It's been over 25 years ago. And when I started management, I started with the birth of twins. So I had two new babies going into the management position. And I had to step back and had to realize I couldn't do it all by myself. That's a myth about being a superwoman. You have to learn how to ask for help. And regardless of whether it is from a professional standpoint or personal standpoint, you need to reach out. And as a leader, one of the things that I encourage is, and I'm not going to even use the word work-life balance, but I'm going to use it from the standpoint of saying you have to figure out what the priorities are for you. And your priorities may change and they flex during the day, they flex during the week, and they may flex within a moment. So being flexible and adaptable to change where necessary to help you in that space. And Alexis, I know you just said you transitioned into your new role 30 days ago. And I'm sure there has been those moments of reflections and moments where you had to have that self-check for yourself. Maybe talk to us a little bit about that as well, and what feedback would you provide in that space as you've been transitioning, not only from your younger years of management, but from the role of this officer, being a new officer, and what you've had to do in that space.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great, we're getting a little bit of echo. Hopefully y'all are not getting too much echoing. But to address, specifically your question, I have really had to adjust. I spent days during the early times of civil unrest. I was working 14 to 16 hours a day, just trying to position how would the brand and automotive at Cadillac, how would we speak? If we spoke, what would it be? What would be the ramifications? And just moving through that process. How do we make our comments really come to life and resonate with our audience, really in a vibrant and authentic way? But as I think about the transition over to Hallmark and leading in a bigger way, I really had to take a step back and measure and look at how was I working at Cadillac? Yes, I was getting results, but was I really caring for who I was? And thinking about what are the principles and core values of our team at Hallmark. It really is about connecting with her and really making sure that care is at the center of everything that we do. And so part of that was for me to say, okay, at 7 p.m., I'm logging off of my computer, making sure that my office, that door is shut. And in the morning, I'm going to get back on it again. And owning that space, I think early on in your career, as you're a younger leader, you think that you have to do everything. You have to respond really quickly to that email. You have to make a comment on everything. And now, as I'm a bit more seasoned, I'm saying I'm in this role to really lead others and to champion the true change that we're making at Mahogany. I'm going to have to be whole. And I'm at a company that really supports that. We spend time, we have hours that are given to us to just volunteer in the community. And those are some things that align with my personal values, but also uplift me, And so I think it's about, setting the boundaries and true parameters of what you need to work effectively. If I need more time with my senior vice president to adjust my pitch deck or presentation, then to ask for that time. And a lot of times when we're younger in our careers, we feel like if we ask for it, then we're not doing what we're supposed to, or we're seen in another light. And I will challenge you to say that you've got to ask for the space that you need to be successful. And in doing that, you're doing a lot for yourself, but also for your team that you're leading. If you're always rushing, then you're definitely missing something. And so that's one of the bigger things that I've taken the time to really, ask for the time that I need to do an exceptional job. And not that I was always afraid to do that in the past, but I didn't necessarily lean into that. So Rita, as a young emerging leader, that's one of the things that I've owned and felt good about, and had talked through, like, I need this time to do this, and this is what I'm going to get out of taking the extra time to leverage some due diligence. And also, when you're in a space that's so creative, like the world of Hallmark and the brands that we're working with, you need that time to just think. And that's, one thing we did have at Cadillac, we had late Friday afternoons. That Friday afternoon in marketing, we spent that time to just think. And that's what you need, that time to ideate, that time to give yourself moments to breathe. And as a marketer, that's essential to your success. How are you going to work to really make sure that your audience understands that you kind of see, hear, and you're acknowledging them, especially at a time like this?
I totally agree with you, Alexis. And I think a lot of times as young leaders, we don't realize how important it is to be strategic and to have that moment to do that thought leadership. And one of the things that I try to do on a daily basis is to make sure I block time off on my calendar just to think. Because as a individual contributor and as a manager, you're more of the doer. You're executing more of those tactical plans. But as you move up the chain and you start to realize that strategy becomes so important, and you have to have an opportunity to sit back and think about what you're trying to do from a vision perspective. How can you help your team to be successful? And more importantly, to be innovative, you have to have time to think. And so I would strongly recommend anyone, regardless of what level you're on, block off time for you to do that. Think about not only how you add value to your organization, but how do you add value to yourself? And that comes with your own development, your own coaching, and you have to take ownership of that. And one of the things that is important is that you realize as a leader, it's really not about power. Power being from a person's position. It's about how you influence others. And when I say influence, I'm going to say positive influence. You need to be able to influence people. You need to be able to influence outcomes. You need to be able to influence situations, innovation, threats, vision, and more importantly, get individuals to be able to do the things that you need to have done without physically doing it yourself. And as you move up the chain, you do more from that influence piece. So, and recognizing and managing influence. And when I say that is, you think that someone has the power and it's maybe based on a title, but what I've learned to do throughout my career is to recognize who are the influencers. Influence from a negative or positive standpoint. And if there's a negative influence, how do you counteract that? What do you put in place to still help you get your job or objective done? And if it's a positive influencer, how do you get that person to help you do what you need to do? And so I think it's important to learn how to manage the influences that are around you. And I think the other thing that's so important is that we manage strategically what I refer to as the power of the P. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. You have to learn how to strategically manage your presence. You have to manage not only how you prepare, but more importantly, manage the postponement of things that may happen in your career. I think people react to negative advice or negative outcomes. You can choose to look at it in a way that's going to make you not be as productive as you need to be, or you're in a situation where you may say to yourself that because I didn't get a certain outcome, then I'm not going to give 100%. That's the worst thing you can do as a leader and as an individual that's trying to move into management. Look at that opportunity as something that you can grow from and figure out, how do I make this work still? And so, Alexis, when you think about your career and think about when individuals are trying to go into leadership, what advice would you give them as they're now starting their journey?
Well, I think the other peak I have in mind is just performing, Rita. You have to perform, and it's not important that you just perform, but you have to document that performance. If I think about a conversation via LinkedIn I had just last night, someone who previously worked at General Motors, so he said he's looking for a job. I said, attach your resume real quick, and I looked at it, and it was a great job description. I said, I don't see the difference in you working here versus someone else. And that difference is your performance. So it's not only that you perform, but you're able to document that performance. What happened because of what you did? And what I see people do early in their career is that they do amazing work, but they don't necessarily articulate and they aren't clearly able to tell the story of the work that they did. In telling the story, you're bringing people along, and people are always looking for someone who can get results. And so it's great to say that I worked at Cadillac, that I worked in the Middle East. It's more important to say that I started a DEI program that we did not have, that every African-American mentor or employee who wanted an executive mentor could get one. And so we have now an executive mentor pilot program, that we started unconscious bias training, that we also did storytelling, so our audience or counterparts wouldn't be thinking that the George Floyds and the Breonna Taylors were not people that could have been in my family, people that couldn't have been in your family. I have 5 brothers and 5 sisters, and my parents are living. And so, not to say that whether these were right choices or wrong choices, but there's stories deep within me as an employee that I too need to share with my counterparts. As people start to talk about bringing your whole self to work, and what that really means. And so the part of the storytelling series was really to start so we can bring in more employees so they could understand what we're going through on a day-to-day level. And so, just in response to what you said, it's really about how are you making sure there's metrics and you're telling the story of your results. How are you performing, and how are you able to easily lay that out to any audience? Where is your elevator speech on how you killed it? How are you continuing to nail it? And those are the things that people are going to remember, whether it's in your interview, whether it's in a quick conversation with you, is that Rita gets results. And so I want Rita on my team. Alexis gets results. Alexis can take something from ideation into execution. And so that's who I want. That's who Hallmark wants. And so those are the type of things, that's the type of conversation and small talk and narrative we need to be having when we step into a meeting. Not how's the weather, but storytell with your results so you can, again, bring people along. And that's kind of what I would love people tonight, just a small piece of what I want them to take away. I want to make sure we're giving them tips on how to lean in and be successful.
And being a problem solver is something that everyone looks for. And I can say, I'm looking for that, you're looking for that. And when you're the individual that can walk into the room and solve a problem for someone, or to take something off of their plate, and be an individual that can do it in a manner that you still allow for others to win while you win. And what I mean by that is that a lot of times when we approach things, we look at it as that we're in competition all the time, and we're not. And I think from my perspective, it is so important that we reach out and try to help and assist where we can. And you don't have to always feel like everyone's an opponent. How can I assist and you assist and provide that insight that's going to help us to move forward? And I truly believe that we should win and negotiate and work with others in a way that they can walk away from the table. Maybe they didn't get everything that they wanted, but they got something. And you are working with them in a collaborative fashion. And part of your success as a leader is learning how to collaborate and network with others, where they feel as though, like you said, bringing something to the table. But what do you do when you're not at the table? How do you really get someone to advocate on your behalf, and understanding the importance of that? And the way that I kind of look at things as well is that as a leader, and if you're moving into leadership, you're going to have to learn how to be your own self-advocate, and also look for those opportunities for someone not only to mentor you and to coach you, but are you displaying and putting out the right brand for yourself that's going to allow for someone to sponsor you? And I think that's important, a conversation that we need to have with the individuals now and ourselves, because I know throughout my career, I've had coaches, I've had mentors, and more importantly, I've had sponsors. Yeah. And I'm going to clear this also from the standpoint of a sponsor. A lot of times you don't even know that someone's sponsoring you. They're speaking up when you're not in the room. They're giving you an opportunity and saying, hey, Alexis is the person that you want for this opportunity and job. This is what she's capable of doing. And so it's so important that as a leader, and especially as a young leader, that you're developing a reputation and you are coming to the table where somebody wants to sponsor you. So let's talk about that a little bit, Alexis. How was the sponsorship for you, and even the mentoring and the coaching?
Yeah, well, first of all, I am here because of many mentors and sponsors who spoke up in my presence, but more importantly, behind my back in support of me. Some looked like me and some didn't. I think one big thing that is really important is that give people the language, the tools, and the resources to speak on your behalf, Rita.
Oh, true.
And so the biggest piece of that is, one, you got to know every single time, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, whether it's through a connection, you're always on stage. So you always need your talking points.
Mm-hmm.
Key talking points when I came back from Dubai, and that role was, I had a global role. I went in, started a customer experience department from the ground up. And the last thing was that I was supposed to be there 6 months, and I ended up staying 1.5 years. And so it is every single experience. What are your talking points? And so in your conversations with mentors, people you want to be mentors, people who you want to be speaking your name in rooms that you're not in, give them the talking points, make it super easy for them to advocate on your behalf. And then you've got to look the part. And so, I am not one in my 40s to say that you should always have your camera on or always look whatever it is. I think you should understand the culture at your company. I left a company where we were always cameras off, and I came to a company where we're always cameras on. So you need to be camera ready. So it's not important that you have this discussion about, well, woe is me, I don't want to. It is understanding the culture, reading the room, and based on that, looking at leaders who are above you or where you aspire to be, and deciding, Rita, Are those the steps and decisions I want to take to get to that role? Or is that not what I want to do? Or should I be at another company?
Right.
And so I think those are some of the things that I want to make sure we're very clear about tonight. It is that you are always on stage, but the second piece is like, it is your narrative. Give people the talking points to spread the word. It's like the
Right.
gospel. Give them the words to spread on your behalf to support you. And in doing that, when you're very intentional about that, Rita, I mean, the mentors and sponsors will come because everybody wants to get behind somebody who's headed someplace.
I totally agree with you. And even from the standpoint of the culture, sometimes there's cultures within the culture. So it's those informal cultures that you also have to be privy to and to be aware. And for me, when I think about this and what we communicate and the importance of it, is that ensuring that you are looking at your environment. You said reading the room. That is so important. And when you read the room, what is it really telling you? And a lot of times, as a leader, we may have blind spots. And so it is so important as you do your leadership journey to have individuals that are willing to tell you the truth and creating an environment where you're willing to listen to the truth without getting upset. And so I like to say, I want people around me that's going to tell me what I need to know. And I also want to be the type of leader that feels strong enough that I can tell the people above me what they need to know. And in my role as the VP of Internal Audit, I'm literally managing multiple opcos, multiple CEOs, CFOs, multiple cultures. And so I need to be able to speak freely, to speak honestly, and not be afraid. And what is so important is that you have to learn how to quiet that voice in your head that tells you what you can't do. That voice in that head that says, maybe I don't have the courage to do this. Everyone has fear, even the highest ranking person within your corporation. The difference is that they've learned how to manage that fear. They've learned how to manage that voice. And I know, Alexis, with your role and what you've been doing, you've had to learn how to manage what I refer to as that inner critic, that voice that tells you either you can't do something, you're not qualified, why are you trying to go above your means? And a lot of times that voice either comes from something from childhood or bad experience, but you have to manage it. So Alexis, from that perspective, how do you quiet that voice within your head that tells you you can't do something when you know you should?
I'm always praying, and before every conversation, meeting, I find myself praying. The other thing is I've allowed myself to not be perfect, to say that I do not have to be perfect. Grace is given to everyone else. And so if I feel like everything is riding on me as an African-American woman, then there's something wrong with me in my corporation. If I at any point in time feel like there will not ever be anyone who comes behind me because I've got the weight of the world, our counterparts don't feel that way. And most of the time, that piece is mentally in your head. I mean, do I have to go doing an exceptional job? Yes, but I'm going to go do an exceptional job. That is what I do. And so I think it always is that a friend of mine, Dr. Akuya Boatin, she talks about that. She's a psychiatrist, and she talks about that inner voice and that inner talk and those affirmations we consistently have to give ourselves daily. And it's not always at every single moment you have this moment of self-doubt, but I think it is sometimes we're always feeling like every single time we speak, it needs to be perfect. And I tell you what, it really doesn't. And so for anyone under the sound of my voice who feels the stress of the world, who feels like you have to be perfect, you have to be beautiful, you have to sound eloquent, listen, we're in the midst of COVID. People are teachers now who were never teachers. They're house cleaners. They're the mothers, the grandmothers, the fathers, the cousin, the uncle. the lawn care. I mean, it is a lot. And so we have to give ourselves that space to be human. And so if you're ever in a place where someone is not acknowledging that space that you need, it's just something for you to think of. And it's not necessarily that you have to go anywhere else. It may mean you just need to ask for those moments and that space.
Right.
And so that is on you. That is on me as an employee to say, listen, I need a mental break. I need an extra day off from the weekend, or I need a long weekend. So you've got to speak up. And a lot of times when people have this negative self-talk, it just drowns them in their own sorrows rather than speaking up and asking for what they need. And so speaking up is so essential.
Yeah, I totally agree with you from that perspective. And sometimes, and I think this is more so women, but we do have men that may experience this as well. You know, you hear about this imposter syndrome. And in my coaching sessions and mentoring sessions, that's brought up sometimes, particularly when I'm talking to younger women. And how do you manage that? And how do you put yourself in a situation where you don't feel like you're an imposter, or somebody's going to recognize maybe you don't know as much as you think you do. And I always tell them, you're there for a reason. You know, you got to this level based on your hard work, your ambition, your know-how, and then also supports of others. And you're going to have those days when you feel like, I don't know what I need to know, or I feel like someone's going to discover that I'm really not as good as I think I am, or they think I am. And for me, it's been those situations in my career that I realized that I just had to be authentically who I am, and to have my own personal boundaries, as well as being flexible enough to know that I'm good enough to do whatever I choose to do. And it's all about how you think about yourself and think about the situation. What's the worst that can happen? You fail. So what? A failure is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to do more, or maybe that failure was something that says you really didn't need to do that. It might have been the best blessing that ever came your way. And you have to realize that now you may have to go a different path, but that path is the path you probably should have been on in the first place. So when you think about young leaders and individuals that want to become leaders, what would you tell them from the standpoint of failure? How do you overcome it? And how did you overcome some of your failures, or one particular failure?
Yeah, so I think it's important to fail forward and fail fast. And also what is the story you tell about the failure?
Right.
Not you have failed, but you need to storytell around why you failed. What are you going to do to adjust? And so it goes back to these fundamentals. Mm-hmm. Tell the story. These are the same positive stories you need to tell yourself, the same affirmation you need to tell yourself. So again, when you're doing storytelling about the failures you have done, make sure the narration is correct. Talk about, was it resources? Talk about, was it the idea? Talk about, you didn't execute this all alone. So you were bringing a number of people along and we failed. I didn't fail. We failed. Another big thing is you've got to have that servant leadership, Rita. Mm-hmm. And so when you talked about that piece of being a leader and servant leadership is that I don't know everything, and right. I don't need to know everything. And so I'm leaning on the experts. I mean, woe is me who comes to Mahogany and Hallmark and thinks that I'm going to leverage everything from my past to take this brand into a whole nother realm, into so many new places and spaces, into a new audience. I've got to lean on the experts, the storytellers like our Melvina, our Deidre, who's been there for the last 15 to 20 years. Look at our young people like our Courtneys, and really lean into those young hearts and minds of those people who know the brand, and then leverage my expertise and my strategists like Sophia and say, hey, how are we taking things forward? But again, bringing everybody along, having that share of voice. It is with that servant leadership that leaders are able to inspire. Because who wouldn't want to work with someone who says, hey, I don't know it all. You're the experts. I am here to help. Let's figure this out. I am jumping in with them and we are solving this big problem. And so that's how you're able to motivate the masses. It is with inspiration. And again, like you said, I have the background, I have the expertise, I've done it already. And so absolutely I can do it now. And Paula's on because she's, she's like, we're getting too good
coming
here.
back. Okay, we were getting good, Paula.
Listen, I'm so sad that I had to come up here because you guys have been just the chat has been lighting up. You guys have been lighting me up with all this wisdom. Lord have mercy. Woo!
And we're just getting started.
I know. So we are going to try our best to get through just a couple of questions. I know we had to start a little bit late due to technical difficulties. So first question is actually for you, Alexis. How did you find this new role during a time when companies are downsizing? I mean, tell us about that Black girl magic. How did you make that happen?
I cannot, it was the Lord, but beyond that, one thing I will say is that you've got to advertise. I keep talking about telling your story. And so I spent a lot of time during this time of civil unrest and all of the work that I was doing. I was on LinkedIn like a serious person. And it wasn't that I was not pursuing a job. I was making sure that the world saw me as a subject matter expert as it related to multicultural marketing, as it related to DEI, as it related to leading iconic brands. And so in that, I probably did 40 virtual conversations and spoke, keynotes virtually. So I spent a lot of time and still was working, did not skip a beat at work, but spent a lot of time on LinkedIn and Instagram talking during this time to really spread the word and my expertise. And so that really, was how I was found. So really, I found articles and curated my audience in a way that when you come to my page, it is about uplifting and empowering you. It is about that care. It is about a laser focus on people of color and seeing them succeed. I don't get into a lot of other nonsense. I really focus on serving the nearly 25,000 followers that I have and really looking at what is the most up-to-date information. How can I keep you inspired? And how can I encourage you? Because that is kind of the gap that I saw in the marketplace. So in spite of everything that was going on, it really was important for me to focus on my brand, what was important to me, and my level of expertise. And so a lot of times you can talk about a whole lot of things. Me and Rita can talk about a whole lot of things. Yes. But when we get focused on what are the things that are important, and so that's really in that space of working and storytelling. That's how the wonderful people at Stanton Chase and also at Hallmark found me. So here I
am. Talking about working on your own narrative, right? Making sure that you were putting that out there in this space and time. So thank you for answering that question. So the next one I'll pose to Rita. Can reserved individuals become vice presidents?
You're looking at one. And I'm going to tell you guys something which may shock you. I am a complete introvert. And I consider myself as a very reserved individual. But you can be reserved, you can be an introvert, and you can still be extremely successful. A lot of your leadership executives, they are introverts, they are reserved, but they know how to step out and to communicate and to be effective in the role that they have. So anyone that's a reserved person or shy, there's a way for you to still be as successful as you want to be. Get out there, have conversation, make connections, because to me, especially as you move up the chain within your organization or any company that you're at, it's about relationships. It's about connections. It's about building trust. And if you're an individual that's reserved, that really don't like to talk, I'm not really a talker either. I'm more of a listener. And being a good listener is one of the biggest assets that you can have. because you're sitting there and you observe that information, you're looking at the needs of others, and you're figuring out how to solve that problem. So still be reserved, but step out there and don't allow yourself to not take on all those opportunities that may be out there for you.
This has been great. I knew it was going to be. I am so sad that our time together has come to an end, but thank you so much for this time that you've spent with us. We really cannot thank you enough. You all who are watching, we'd love to hear from you and know how you felt about the session. So you will see a link to a survey in the chat. Please fill it out. The first 25 to fill that out will be entering a chance to win an Amazon gift card. Thank you again to our Memphis chapter for collaborating with us and for bringing these great leaders to the forefront. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening and take really good care of yourselves.
Thanks so much.
Thank you
Good night.
guys.
Thank you.
Good
Look
night.
forward to coming back.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.